Lyria and the Fairy Academy of Dawnlight. Part 1, The Whispering Woods and the Journey to Dawnlight. There was a place beyond the maps of mortals, a land that woke only when the stars blinked their slowest. Its name was Aeloria, and its heart was a forest older than time itself, the Whispering Woods. By day, the forest looked ordinary, though still impossibly green, the sort of green that human eyes could never truly name. But by night, it glowed. The trees whispered in silver tones. The moss sang lullabies to sleeping fawns. Streams carried reflections of dreams that hadn't yet come true. Deep within that gentle maze of light and sound lived a young fairy named Lyria Dewglow. Lyria's wings were a soft lilac hue, speckled with tiny sparkles that caught the light like raindrops. Her hair fell in messy waves, always tangled from late-night flight experiments, and her laugh could startle the stars into twinkling a little brighter. She wasn't like the calm, graceful fairies who painted petals or composed moonlight songs. Lyria liked to run instead of glide. She liked to ask why when everyone else said how. And though she was clumsy, oh, how often she was clumsy, she carried something rare in her heart, a hunger to learn. Every night she would sit on the edge of her favorite mushroom perch, watching the great towers of light flicker on the horizon. Those towers belonged to the Fairy Academy of Dawnlight, the place where the brightest young fairies studied ancient magic and the mysteries of creation itself. And Lyria, though just a small fairy from a forgotten corner of the forest, dreamed that one day she would study there too. It began on a morning wrapped in mist. The dew had just begun to sparkle when Lyria was woken by a hum. Not a sound from outside, but a sound in the air. Soft, melodic, like sunlight trying to take shape. She blinked, rubbed her eyes, and gasped. Before her, a golden shimmer gathered in the air, twisting, turning, until it became a scroll made of pure light. "By the breath of dawn," she whispered, "it's real." With trembling fingers, she unrolled it. The letters flowed like honey across the page. "Dear Miss Lyria Dewglow, the Fairy Academy of Dawnlight invites you to join our first-year class. Classes shall commence on the first full moon of spring. Please bring courage, curiosity, and your brightest sparkle. Signed, Headmistress Virelia Moonsage, Fairy Academy of Dawnlight." Lyria stared at it for a long, breathless moment, then squealed so loudly that her glowbug companion, Nibby, fell right off the windowsill. "Nibby! I got in! I got in!" She twirled in the air, scattering sparkles everywhere. Her wings glowed brighter than they ever had before. Her mother, hearing the commotion, entered with a smile that was half laughter and half tears. She had always known her daughter was meant for something greater. "My little comet," she said softly, brushing Lyria's hair. "You were never meant to stay in one sky forever." They packed her things that very day, a satchel made of rose petal silk, 3 nectar cakes, her wand, and a tiny charm shaped like a crescent moon. When dawn touched the edge of the woods, Lyria stood on her mushroom perch one last time, heart fluttering with excitement and fear. "Goodbye, Whispering Woods," she whispered. "I'll make you proud." And with a single beat of her lilac wings, she lifted off into the soft morning light. The skies of Aeloria were a living dream. Lyria soared through clouds tinted with lavender and gold, her reflection flashing in passing raindrops. She flew over rivers that sang in fields of floating dandelions that drifted like lanterns. Every few miles, a sky creature or passing fairy would wave, messengers, merchants, and dreambearers, all heading toward Dawnlight, the capital of learning and magic. But even among them, Lyria's joy stood out. She twirled, laughed, even raced the wind itself, though she lost every time. As dusk settled, the horizon began to glow, not with sunlight, but with the Academy's light. 7 crystal towers rose high above the clouds, each crowned with a sphere of softly pulsing magic. Floating bridges arched between them like threads of moonlight. Beneath it all, waterfalls poured endlessly into the mist. Lyria gasped. "It's beautiful," she breathed. "It's more than beautiful." A welcoming chime echoed through the air as she approached the gates of silver ivy. 2 guardian fairies greeted her, their robes woven with constellations. "Welcome to Dawnlight, Miss Dewglow," one said with a knowing smile. "You sparkle already." Lyria blushed. I think that's just nerves." They chuckled and waved her through. Her dormitory, Petalwing Hall, smelled of wild honey and old books. The ceiling shimmered with slow-moving constellations, and the air hummed softly, a faint magical purr that made her wings tremble pleasantly. Inside room 17B, she found her roommates, Mira Mosswillow, a soft-spoken green-winged fairy who could make plants bloom with a single hum. Ira Glint, golden-winged, poised, and famously top of her class already. She mentioned it twice in the first 10 minutes. "Try not to leave glitter trails," Ira said, arranging her books by color. "Some of us like a tidy space." Lyria smiled awkwardly. "Of course. I'll just... Oh!" She sneezed. A cloud of glitter poofed across the room. Mira giggled behind her hand. "Don't worry. It suits the place." And that night, as they drifted to sleep beneath floating candlelight, Lyria whispered to herself, "Tomorrow I'll learn real magic." The sun rose like a soft sigh, pouring pale gold through the curved windows of Petalwing Hall. Dust motes floated lazily through the air, glowing like tiny planets. The room smelled faintly of honey-leaf tea and blooming vines. Lyria sat cross-legged on her bed, brushing the glitter out of her wings. Mira was humming to herself, braiding her green-tinted hair while tiny leaves fluttered down around her. Ira, as always, was perfect, every feathered edge of her golden wings polished to mirror brightness. "Do you think we'll have flying lessons today?" Lyria asked, tying the ribbon of her wand pouch. Mira looked up. "Not on the first day. They usually start with safety spells and light control practice." Ira gave a short laugh. "Safety spells?" Judging by last night's sneeze, Lyria will need extra sessions. Lyria stuck out her tongue, but Mira's gentle giggle melted the teasing away. "Be kind, Ira. Everyone's wings scatter differently." "I wasn't being unkind," Ira said, but her tone softened. She looked out the window, where morning light spilled across the crystal towers. "I just don't want to get paired with her if we have to lift anything fragile." The words might have stung, yet Lyria smiled. "Then I'll make sure whatever I lift is heavier than you expect." That earned a grin from Mira, and even Ira's lips curved a fraction. The quiet tension of new roommates was easing, thread by thread. Mira unrolled a silver leaflet that shimmered faintly. "They posted the supply list for first years," she said. "We'll need rune quills, focus orbs, spell parchment, and crystal lenses. Oh, and wand sleeves to keep them from cracking under moonlight." Lyria blinked. "Moonlight cracks wands?" "Only the cheap ones," Ira said smoothly, "which is why we're going to Aurathorne." "Aurathorne?" Lyria repeated, the word like music in her mouth. "It's the village under the academy," Mira explained. "Every student goes there to buy supplies. The entire town floats between the clouds. Lantern vines, potion shops, tea stalls. It's wonderful." Lyria's heart fluttered. "Then what are we waiting for?" They stepped into the Skyway tram a little after noon. The tram was a glass bubble with runes glowing faintly along its frame. As soon as they boarded, it lifted, drifting away from the spires of Dawnlight. The world unfolded beneath them in shimmering layers. Drifting gardens, waterfalls spilling into mist, and below it all a sprawling tapestry of light. The floating town of Aurathorne. The wind carried laughter and scents, cinnamon pollen, citrus bloom, and the faint electric hum of magic. Lyria pressed her hands to the glass. "It's like flying inside a dream." Mira smiled. "Wait until you try the Dream Brew cafes." "What's Dream Brew?" she asked. Ira closed her book, finally interested. "It's an elixir cafe. They mix emotions into their drinks. Order the wrong one, and you'll spend an hour giggling or crying." "I want that," Lyria said immediately. The tram descended through a bank of clouds, and Aurathorne revealed itself fully. Bridges of light connecting hollowed tree towers, market stalls hung from the air like lanterns, music drifting from nowhere. Fairies of every hue filled the streets, traders with crystal jars, poets hovering above their manuscripts, apprentices rushing with stacks of spellbooks taller than themselves. When they stepped out, cobblestones glowed beneath their feet, warm as morning bread. The girls linked arms, laughter already bubbling as they walked among stalls that sold impossible things. Whisper feathers that carried messages, mirrors that showed what you'd look like in someone else's memory, and tiny bottled constellations. At one booth, a plump fairy woman leaned over her counter. "Looking for focus orbs, darlings? I've got the finest in 3 realms." Lyria touched one gently. Inside, silver mist swirled like trapped moonlight. "They're beautiful." "They're alive," said the shopkeeper, her eyes glinting. "Each one chooses its owner." The orb in Lyria's palm glowed faintly, lilac light pulsing to the rhythm of her heartbeat. "It's warm." "Then it's chosen you," the woman said softly. "Careful, it'll reflect your truth." "My truth?" But the shopkeeper only smiled. "You'll know when you're ready." She wrapped the orb in silk and handed it over. Hours passed like minutes. They bought rune quills that laughed when you wrote poetry, and parchment that hummed back your thoughts. Lyria found a wand sleeve woven with starlace, and a charm shaped like a crescent, so like her mother's that she felt a tiny ache of homesickness. By the time their satchels bulged with supplies, the light had mellowed into afternoon gold. Mira's stomach growled audibly. Tea time. Definitely, Ira said. Let's try the Luminous Petal Cafe. Best elixirs in town. The cafe sat at the edge of a floating garden, its walls made of woven vines and its ceiling open to the sky. Petals drifted down like soft rain, dissolving before they touched the ground. Inside, music tinkled from glass chimes. They found a table near the window, overlooking the endless cloud sea below. A kindly waiter, half transparent, as if made of mist, floated over. "What may I bring you?" Mira ordered Serenity Bloom, a gentle green brew that calmed the heart. Ira chose Radiant Spark, which glittered gold and promised confidence. Lyria scanned the menu, eyes wide at names like Joyflame, Velvet Dusk, Courage Nectar. "I'll have Dawnlight Dream," she decided. When the drinks arrived, they looked like captured weather. Mira's like bottled rain, Ira's like liquid sunlight, Lyria's a swirl of lavender and pale blue. Steam rose, scented with sugar mint and starlight. The first sip was like a sigh. Sweetness unfolded, followed by a wave of warmth that seemed to curl through her wings. The world blurred pleasantly. Even Ira was smiling, actually smiling, as golden sparks twined around her cup. Then the air changed. The cafe's music slowed. The chimes outside gave a single, hollow note. Every candle flickered in perfect unison, their flames bending toward the east. Lyria's focus orb, tucked in her satchel, began to pulse. She felt it before she saw it. A heartbeat against her palm, quick and insistent. "Do you feel that?" she whispered. Mira nodded, eyes wide. "Something's moving through the ley lines. It's like a surge." The lights dimmed to silver. For one breathless moment, the entire cafe glowed faintly blue, every fairy frozen mid-movement. In that silence, a whisper threaded through the air, soft, melodic, ancient. Not in words, but in feeling. A call. Then it was gone. The light returned. Conversations resumed. Laughter spilled back as though nothing had happened. Only Lyria, Mira, and Ira seemed to notice the residue of magic trembling in the air. Lyria slowly pulled the orb from her satchel. The silver mist inside was no longer calm. It spiraled, gathering into a shape. A crescent moon surrounded by faint runes. The same sigil etched on the Academy's main gate. The same mark on her mother's old charm. Ira leaned close. That wasn't there before. "No," Lyria whispered, "and it's glowing." The mark flared once, bright enough to light their faces, then faded back into calm mist. Outside thunder murmured distantly, even though the skies were clear. Mira's voice was barely a breath. "I think it was trying to show us something." "Or warn us," Ira said. They sat in silence a while, the echo of that hum still in their bones. Lyria looked around the cafe. Everyone else had forgotten already, but she caught a flicker of motion in the corner. A cloaked figure, tall and still, watching them from the shadows. For a moment, she met its gaze, eyes like polished obsidian, reflecting her own lilac glow. And then it was gone, dissolving into mist. When she looked back, Mira was gathering her things, forcing cheer into her voice. "We should head back before curfew." "Yes," Ira said quickly, but her hand trembled as she paid. They left the cafe under a sky painted with sunset gold. The tram ride back was quiet. Mira stared at the clouds. Ira pretended to read. Lyria held the orb on her lap, its faint light pulsing like a secret heartbeat. By the time they reached Petalwing Hall, night had fully blossomed. Stars drifted between the towers of the academy like drifting seeds. Students laughed below, unaware of anything amiss. But Lyria could still feel it. That faint vibration under her skin, that whisper in the air that hadn't been there before. When she set the orb on her bedside table, it shimmered once more, faintly echoing the same symbol. And for the briefest instant, she heard it again. That same melodic hum that had once delivered her letter. Only now it sounded like it was calling her name. Lyria! She turned toward the window, but there was nothing. Only the moon rising, calm and silver over the spires of dawnlight. She lay down, unable to sleep, watching the light trace patterns across the ceiling. Mira breathed softly in her bed. Ira's silhouette was still, perfect, serene. But outside, deep beyond the Academy's protective wards, something stirred in the forest. The same forest she had called home. The whispering woods shivered, every leaf sighing her name. And far, far below, in the marketplace of Aurathorne, the cloaked figure lifted a crystal mirror. In its surface glowed the same crescent moon, bright and waiting. "Soon," it murmured, "the child of light has awakened." The morning after the incident in Aurathorne came too quickly. Lyria woke to sunlight spilling over the bedposts and Mira's voice whispering, "You'll be late for orientation." For a moment she wanted to hide under her blanket and pretend the world was ordinary again. No glowing orbs, no whispers, no cloaked figures. Just school, books, and magic lessons. But life in Dawnlight didn't slow down for uncertainty. By the time she reached the Hall of Radiance, the place was alive with color and sound. Students chattering, wings glittering, spells sparking accidentally in nervous hands. The great crystal dome overhead caught every glimmer, painting the floor with rainbows. Professor Orlin floated onto the dais. "Welcome, first years. Here, light is your voice. Learn to let it sing, and it will answer." They began with the simplest of exercises, coaxing orbs of light to dance above their palms. Lyria's first attempt flickered, then flared too bright. The glow shot upward, scattering across the ceiling like starlight. "Control, Miss Dewglow," Orlon sighed, though his eyes twinkled. Before she could apologize, a voice from behind muttered just loud enough. "Some of us are trying not to blind the entire hall." She turned. A boy with storm gray wings and dark golden hair stood 2 rows back, his orb of light hovering perfectly steady above his hand. His uniform was crisp, his expression unreadable, calm, almost bored. Lyria's cheeks warmed. "It's my first day, not my 50th. "Then maybe watch instead of guess," he said coolly. "Magic responds better to patience than panic." Mira whispered from beside her, "That's Auren Valahart." Top of every entrance exam, supposedly descended from the old Windguard line. "Wonderful," Lyria muttered. "A genius and a poet of manners." For the rest of the lesson, she tried not to look his way, though she could feel his quiet, precise energy, the way his spells moved like music she hadn't learned yet. Over the next days, the academy settled into rhythm. Morning lessons filled with shimmering glyphs and half-sung incantations. Afternoons spent in wide courtyards, practicing aerial maneuvers until their wings ached. Evenings glowed with candlelight and the sound of pages turning. Mira excelled in botanical enchantments. Her vines grew into living sculptures that whispered lullabies. Ira was flawless in runic calculus, her precision making professors smile with rare approval. Lyria, meanwhile, lived in a storm of brilliance and disaster. One day, her levitation charm lifted the wrong object, a desk, with a fellow student still sitting on it. Another, her glow spell painted half the classroom in lilac dust. Auren Veilheart always noticed, sometimes with a sigh, sometimes with a single, infuriating glance that said, "You could do better if you just think." And yet, something in those glances began to stir her, not anger anymore, but curiosity. His magic wasn't just disciplined, it was beautiful. Every gesture exact, every shimmer controlled. Where she was chaos, he was calm. Where she burned, he breathed. On the 5th evening after flight precision training, the sky turned violet. Students were packing away their wands when the air rippled. A pulse like the one in the cafe, stronger this time. The crystal domes above flickered from gold to silver, and a tremor of wind swept through the halls. Screams echoed from the upper terrace. Professor Orlan shouted for calm, but the air itself was changing. Light folding into shadow, forming patterns that writhed like living runes. Lyria's orb pulsed in her satchel, glowing through the fabric. She stumbled back, wings flaring open. Mira grabbed her hand. "It's happening again!" Before she could answer, one of the floating lanterns above them exploded in a burst of dark light. The fragments hung mid-air, frozen, as if time itself hesitated. And then Auren was there, stepping through the chaos as though it had parted for him. He raised his hand, murmuring something under his breath, words sharp and steady. The fragments slowed, turned to dust, and vanished. For a heartbeat, the world was silent again. Professor Orlan's voice rang out, strained. "Everyone back to your dorms, now." Students scattered. Mira and Ira clutched Lyria's arms, but she lingered, staring at Auren. The silver glow of the fading light caught in his hair, turning it almost white. He looked at her then, eyes like distant thunder. "You shouldn't have come close," he said quietly. "That energy, whatever it is, reacts to you." She blinked. "What do you mean, reacts?" He hesitated, something unreadable in his gaze. "You're carrying a resonance." "I felt it the first day." She frowned. "Maybe you just feel superior to everyone and mistake it for resonance." That drew the faintest smile from him, small, reluctant, genuine. "Maybe. But keep your focus orb with you. I think it's tied to this." Before she could answer, he was gone, walking into the drifting haze of magic and fading sunlight. That night, Lyria couldn't sleep. The academy had quieted, but her thoughts buzzed. She placed her orb on the desk. It glowed softly, echoing her pulse. Every now and then, it flickered with silver symbols she couldn't read. She opened her window. The wind outside was cool, scented with moonflowers. Somewhere below, the waterfalls whispered, and faintly, through the hum of night, she thought she heard a voice. Low, familiar. "Lyria," she leaned out, but there was nothing. Only the sky, wide and shimmering. When she turned back, her orb pulsed once, and for an instant a reflection appeared in the glass. Auren's face, or something that looked like him, bathed in starlight, eyes closed, whispering words she couldn't hear. Then the image dissolved. Lyria sat, very still. She wasn't sure if she felt fear or something far more dangerous. The beginning of understanding. Outside, unseen beyond the towers, the same cloaked figure from Aurathorne watched the academy lights flicker. Its voice drifted softly on the night breeze. Two flames, at last they've found each other. Morning unfurled like silk across the towers, and the academy shook the stars from its shoulders to welcome another week. Bells chimed in mellow intervals. Staircases of light unfolded between spires. A river of first years drifted past windows where moonflowers folded themselves back to sleep. Lyria walked between Mira and Ira, the three of them wrapped in the delicate hum that always seemed to linger before lessons. Fresh parchment, warmed honey, soft wing beats, and a promise of discovery hiding in the seams of the day. They began with lightcraft, where Professor Orlin asked the class to coax their glow into precise shapes. Spheres, spirals, quiet flames that did not burn. Lyria's light wanted to be everything all at once. It trembled between forms, blazed too bright, and finally settled into a shy little star that blinked twice and dissolved. Orlin nodded as if this too was a kind of success. "You're learning to listen before you shine," he said, and Lyria tried to believe him. Mira's glow made leafy silhouettes flutter across the walls, and Ira's hovered in clean rings, each balanced perfectly within the next. Lyria felt her heart swell with a tender mixture of pride and envy. Friendship had a way of stitching both into the same seam. After lightcraft came flight precision in the east courtyard, where winds crossed in crisscross currents, and the instructors tied silver ribbons to the students' wrists to judge their steadiness. Lyria's ribbon wagged like a mischievous fish. Mira drifted like a leaf that knew exactly where it wanted to fall. Ira cut the air in gleaming lines, measured, immaculate. Between classes, the gardens glittered with dew. They took a short path along the cool water rill, where stair-stepped pools held reflections of clouds that were not in the sky. A pair of tiny dragons, no longer than Lyria's forearm, slept curled inside a sun-warmed lantern, breath fogging the glass in crescent shapes. Students picnicked on hovering blankets that bobbed when anyone laughed too hard. Someone practiced a harp under an archway of glass vines. The notes threaded through the day like slender birds. By midday, the air had turned to warm sugar. Lyria and her friends shared a quick lunch of pollen puffs, dusted with cinnamon, and a pot of nettle leaf tea that tasted like kindness. They spoke of small things, Professor Orlin's twinkling patience, Mira's new seedling that sang in its sleep, Ira's annoyance that the library's index had been rearranged by intuition, which she called chaos, wearing a polite ribbon. None of them said out loud what sometimes pressed like a thumb against Lyria's ribs. The memory of the cafe's hush, the surge, the runes that moved like startled fish under the skin of the world. They did not say it, but they carried it. In the afternoon, the three filed into runic theory. The classroom was a sun-drenched amphitheater ringed with shelves of slate tablets and bottled glyphs, little letters of light that swam in their jars like playful minnows. Professor Sylvine, A spare, hawk-boned woman with silver hair braided close to her head wrote in the air with a luminous stylus. Each stroke hung, humming softly, before dissolving. "Runes," she said, "are not mere letters. They are patterns of listening. You do not command them, you harmonize." She gestured, and the stylus drew a simple shape. 3 strokes, a curl, a dot that glowed like a small moon. Lyria's orb in her satchel stirred, a whisper against her palm. She stilled it with her fingertips, feeling rather than hearing its quiet thrum. "Your term project," Sylvine announced, "will be conducted in pairs. You will analyze how 2 different magical signatures alter the same rune set. Balance and counterbalance, contrast and accord." Papers rustled, wings rustled too. Lyria felt the room tilt slightly, the way every room did when fate was about to arrange itself more boldly than manners permitted. "Pairs are assigned," the professor added, tapping the stylus against her palm like a metronome. "No trades." Names began to fall like snow. Mira Moss Willow with Rin of the Singing Orchard. Ira Glint with Celeste Starfall. Lyria waited, feeling her breath gather in her throat. She did not know why she was certain before she heard it. Perhaps the day had that taste. "Lyria Dewglow," Sylvine said, with Auren Valahart. Silence, small and crystalline, formed briefly around her. Somewhere behind, a chair leg gave a soft squeal against the floor. Lyria turned. Auren's expression was unreadable, delicately bored, the way the moon might look at a single flame on the sea. Of course, she thought, without words. Of course it would be him. They approached the front after class to receive their assignment packet. Professor Sylvain handed each pair a sealed bundle of vellum and a small rune compass, an elegant brass circle with a needle of pale light instead of metal. "You'll begin with the foundational set. Listen, trace, record variations. Your fieldwork site is the Moonvine Gardens. Night observations required." Her gaze flicked between Lyria and Auren, cool but curious. "You two will either contradict magnificently or illuminate each other. Try for the latter." Out in the corridor, the light softened into evening. Auren turned the compass in his hand. It cast a halo across his knuckles. "Moonvine at first bell of night?" he asked, almost as if the question bored him. "It's best to start before the runes have soaked up too much starlight." "That's when they sing most clearly," Lyria said before she could stop herself. He studied her a moment, the faintest push of interest behind his eyes, like wind testing a door. "Yes," he said. "Exactly." "We meet at the south gate," she added more briskly than she felt. "Don't be late," he said, and left without waiting for her answer. He means don't be yourself, she thought, and found a smile hiding behind the words, to her own annoyance. The rest of the afternoon unraveled in threads of routine. Mira coaxed a sapling to bow when anyone said please. Ira debated with a librarian spirit about taxonomy until the shelves resorted themselves in elegant grids. Lyria tried to study, but the rune compass tugged at her concentration from inside her satchel. Tick, hush, like a polite heartbeat. At twilight, dormitory windows began to glow like nests of soft fire. The Moonvine Gardens woke at the edge of the grounds, their trellises silvering, their blossoms unfurling to drink the night. Lyria wrapped her shawl around her shoulders and slipped outside. The air had cooled, threaded with mint and a distant waterfall. Somewhere in the violet distance, bells tolled the first stroke of night. Auren was already at the south gate, of course. The rune compass hung from his wrist by a ribbon of cloud-colored silk. His uniform jacket was open at the throat. "You're on time," he said, as if this surprised him into a slightly better mood. "Good." "I have layers," she replied, and stepped past him into the lantern-shadowed garden. Moonvine was a cathedral of living lace. Tendrils climbed in arcs over white stone paths. Blossoms shaped like little bells cast halos on the flagstones. And here and there, a moth blinked as if it had just remembered its own wings. The runes lay subtly along the path, etched into stones, crawled onto trellis joints, peeking from beneath petals like shy creatures. Auren set the compass on a low pedestal. The needle lifted, a sliver of light searching the air. "We'll start with bass tones," he said, professional as a map, "and move to dual resonance once we've mapped the field." "Bass tones," she echoed, trying to match professionalism and finding herself too curious for the shape of it. "Show me your listening pattern." He glanced at her, measuring, not unkind. "Close your eyes," he said. She did. He spoke in the tone he used for spells, low, precise. "You'll feel it in your sternum first, like a small door opening. Don't push. Don't haul the rune to you, tilt toward it instead. The way you'd turn your face to catch a breeze." His words carried warmth she hadn't expected. The night gathered closer, quiet as a friend. Lyria breathed, beneath the ordinary noise, blood, breath, leaf flutter. She heard it. A soft vowel of the world, the beginning of a sound. Her orb stirred, quickened, glowed, but she held it sleeping with a palm. "There," she whispered. He made a small sound. Agreement, perhaps. "Now trace the pattern you feel with 2 fingers. Let the rune choose your motion." She lifted her hand and let it travel across the air. It was like dancing with something weightless. The shape formed under her fingers. Not a line, but a hum that remembered a line. When she opened her eyes, letters of light hung there. 3 strokes, a curl, a moon dot. The simplest of beginnings. Auren looked almost pleased. "Not bad. Careful," she said. "If you say that too often, the sky will fall." He snorted, and the sound startled a moth into climbing its own halo. They worked in patient circles around the garden. Listen, trace, record, listen, trace. Lyria's warmth hummed toward brightness, hers always ready to rise like bread under a cloth. Auren's steadiness cooled each shape to clarity, giving lines their edges. They bickered about notation. She wanted metaphors. He preferred metrics. They compromised grudgingly, teasingly. "We can put your poetry in the margins," he said, "where it won't topple the math. And we'll put your arithmetic in the footnotes," she returned, "so it stops pretending it's the only language." Hours passed softly, measured by the open and close of blossoms. The rune compass recorded their work with quiet ticks of light. Somewhere beyond the hedges, a night class chanted vowels that sounded like small birds. The moon lifted, slow and devout. That was when the air changed. It began like a sigh, as if the garden had been holding its breath and finally remembered how to let it go. The lanterns flared the way the cafe candles had, bending toward the east. The rune compass needle lifted high, then swung in a slow arc, not with panic, but with purpose, pointing to a trellis at the far path's curve, where moon vines tangled into a sculpted knot. Auren watched the needle, his face sharpening. "Do you feel that?" Lyria did. The hum rose in her bones, the way a name does when someone you love enters the room behind you. Her orb trembled in the satchel, pulse answering pulse. They moved toward the trellis, feet barely whispering. As they approached, the carvings along the stone posts seemed to brighten. Runes crawled there like living script, overlapping, doubling, as if two hands had written in the same place at different times, and the magic had never quite decided which to keep. "Don't touch yet," Auren murmured. He lifted his hand slowly, palm out, and let his magic listen. The runes trembled. Lyria felt them listening back, and, unthinkingly, she lifted her hand too, letting her breath match his. For a heartbeat, their two fields of magic overlapped. The runes woke. They did not blaze. They breathed, silver washing to blue, then to that strange soft gold. The same color as the cafe surge. A pattern emerged where none had been a moment before, a crescent moon enclosed by a ring of tiny dots. Lyria felt it before she recognized it. Her mother's charm, her focus orb's secret. The Academy gate's quiet mark. Auren drew in a breath through his teeth. That symbol. You've seen it. Lyria's skin prickled, the honesty of the moment arriving ahead of caution. "Yes," she said. "It's been following me." "Or you've been following it," he replied, voice not unkind. A wind moved through the garden, sudden and cool. The runes fluttered the way leaves do, and the pattern thinned, as if shy. Lyria reached toward it without thinking. Auren's hand shot out, closing around her wrist. Warm, firm. "Careful," he said. Not sharp, not scolding. Careful. She looked at his hand on her wrist and at the light bouncing along his knuckles. Their magic braided subtly where they touched. The runes steadied. In that small grip, something changed, a moving bridge between theories they had kept separate. Her breath caught. His did too. Then a sound cracked the hush, a soft footfall beyond the trellis. Both turned. Between two pillars, the garden opened onto a narrow service path. A figure stood there, half shadow, half moon. Hooded, still. Not the same height as the cafe watcher. Narrower, younger, maybe. Lyria could not see a face. She only felt the way her orb leapt, and how the figure's silhouette seemed to echo the crescent's curve, a rhyme written in darkness. "Who's there?" Auren called, all calm gone, voice slipping toward command. His hand left her wrist, the absence startling as a pulled thread. The figure did not answer, but the runes flickered again, this time in small ripples, as if someone had dropped a pebble into a pond of letters. Then the shadow slid away, swallowed by night. Auren cursed softly, a word with salt in it. "We're not prepared for a chase." "No," Lyria said, though a part of her ached to follow. "But we have this." She motioned to the trellis. The runes had not vanished. They hovered faintly, the crescent and its circle of points now reduced to embers. Auren set the compass beneath the pattern. The needle steadied, then began to turn very slowly, inscribing a delicate circle of light on the pedestal's brass rim, measuring, remembering. "It's keyed to resonance," he said half to the device, half to the night, to our resonance. The word "our" hung between them like a small declaration. They mapped in silence for a while, the kind of silence that isn't empty. Lyria's mind ran along new tracks, Auren's control not as a cage, but as a harbor. Her own brightness not as an accident, but as a bell that summons. She glanced at him and found him looking back with that forensic attention that had once felt like a cold spotlight and now felt like the beginnings of trust. When at last the runes dimmed to their daytime sleep, the garden exhaled. They packed their tools. Lyria's fingers brushed Auren's as they reached for the same jar of bottled light. Both paused and did not mention it. Above them, constellations drifted like pale ships. On the walk back, their conversation limped, then found better legs. They argued about the best way to annotate a compound glyph, her leaning toward metaphor. It feels like a door that only opens when a song reaches the right note, hymn toward structure. It opens at intervals that correspond to breath cycles and moonrise. Somewhere between the two, a shared language began to knit. He made a small joke about her star-shaped light in Orlan's class. She retaliated with a comment about his collar being allergic to casualness. They were both more amused than they pretended. At the south gate, the path divided toward their separate dorms. The air had cooled further. Breath showed faintly. Auren shifted the compass ribbon around his wrist. "We should schedule a second session tomorrow," he said. "Earlier. I want a baseline before the moon climbs too high." "Earlier," she agreed, and then added before she could think better of it. "You were kind with the trellis when I reached." He looked at her for a beat longer than comfort allowed. "You were brave," he said. "But sometimes bravery is listening, not touching." "I'm learning that," she said. "So am I," he replied, so quietly that the garden almost kept it. They parted without another word. Lyria walked back under the dormitory eaves with the softest flurry in her chest, like moth wings. They say moths always go where the light is, even if they don't know the name for it. In her room, Mira sat cross-legged, braiding a chain of moon petals into a crown. Ira annotated a text so fiercely it might have surrendered if it could. "How was it?" Mira asked, eyes bright, fingers nimble. "Educational," Lyria said, hanging her shawl on its peg. She let the word hold multitudes. "Does he breathe like a metronome even outside class?" Ira muttered without looking up. "Sometimes like a tide," Lyria said before she could stop herself. Both Mira and Ira glanced up at that. A smile sketched itself along Mira's mouth, and Ira's pen paused mid-sentence in a way that meant interest she'd deny. Lyria set her orb on the bedside table. It glowed a modest contentment, then, briefly, flared the crescent and its ring of dots. The symbol felt less like a threat tonight and more like a door, still closed, whispering in its sleep. When she slept, she dreamed of the moonvine trellis, the runes breathing, the two fields of magic stitching a seam of light. In the dream, she did not reach alone. Morning unspooled again. Days found their rhythm. Lightcraft's patient singing, Flight Precision's ribbons, Runic Theory's arguments like chess set to music. Auren and Lyria developed habits without naming them, meeting 2 breaths early, standing a hand's length closer than necessary when listening for the same tone, handing each other tools without looking. Their bickering grew lighter. the barbs wrapped in velvet. Laughter arrived once, unexpectedly, when Lyria's notation margin filled with tiny stars, and Auren accused her of emotional footnoting. She accused him of sterilizing wonder. They were both right. They were both wrong. They were both learning. Twice more subtle disturbances brushed the edges of the Academy's days. In the library, a stack of bottled glyphs chimed in the same key as the cafe surge, then fell silent as soon as Lyria and Auren approached together. In the east courtyard, a mosaic of old runes rippled under their shadows, reforming a syllable neither could translate but both felt. An almost word that tasted of wind and lilies and a promise veiled in gold. On the third night of fieldwork, as they closed the brass compass and prepared to leave, a laugh, soft, breathy, lifted from the service path beyond the trellis. Not cruel, not kind, knowing. They turned in unison, but the path was empty save for a single petal that should not have been there, black as spilled ink. Lyria lifted it with 2 fingers. It left a smudge of cold that refused to warm for several breaths. "Someone wants us to keep walking," Auren said, not quite pleased, not quite afraid. "Or wants to make sure we never stop," Lyria answered. They stood like that a moment, shoulder to shoulder without meaning to be, listening to the garden listen back. The slow burn of it all had moved almost imperceptibly, like dawn stealing across a room. Soon, she knew, it would change color, take on the playful spark she could already feel in the corners of their words. But not tonight. Tonight, the mystery still held the louder voice. Back in Petalwing Hall, Lyria placed the black petal beside her orb. The two did not touch. They regarded each other like wary animals. Mira watched the placement, eyes thoughtful. Ira closed her book with a soft thud. "You're in deeper than you say," Ira remarked. Lyria looked at her. "We all are." Ira's mouth curved. "Finally, a thing we agree on." The wind pressed its palm to the windows. Far below, the floating town of Aurathorne pulsed in slow gold. Somewhere unseen, the cloaked watcher and the narrower shadow held vigil at the edges of the same secret, one patient, one restless. And in a small, ordinary dormitory room, a girl with lilac wings and a boy with storm gray ones slept in different beds, dreaming different dreams that walked the same corridor and paused before the same door, the one with a crescent carved into it, quiet as held breath, waiting for the right 2 notes to be sung together. Night arrived earlier than it should have. The towers of the Fairy Academy usually glowed until the last petal of dusk folded itself away. Yet now, before the bells even rang for supper, one by one the crystal lights along the spires flickered and went dim. From the courtyard, it looked as though the Academy had inhaled too deeply and forgotten to breathe out again. Lyria stood by her dormitory window, the focus orb on the sill casting a faint lilac sheen over her hands. The crescent mark had appeared twice that week without her touching it. Once during lightcraft practice, and again without warning, as she walked past the library. Both times the light in the corridors had faltered. She pressed her forehead to the cool glass and whispered, "Something's changing." Across the room, Mira glanced up from a pot of moonseed saplings that refused to grow. "You feel it too?" Ira shut her book with a soft thud. "Everyone feels it. The Western runes lost color again. Professor Sylvine dismissed class early, said the ley lines are tired. Whatever that means." Before Lyria could answer, A chime echoed through the hall, low, uncertain. The air rippled. Her orb vibrated like a frightened heart. Outside, every lamp along the bridges winked out at once. For a long, breath-held moment, the entire academy was dark. Then a new glow rose, not golden, not gentle, but silver, cold, and pulsing in the rhythm of a heartbeat. The same rhythm as her orb. Mira gasped. Ira whispered, "That symbol again. Look!" Across the far tower wall, huge as a moon and faint as mist, the crescent appeared. Drawn not in light, but in absence of it, a perfect void bending the air around its curve. It pulsed twice, then vanished. And the lights returned, trembling, pretending nothing had happened. The next morning, Headmistress Virelia called an assembly. Her gown shimmered between colors like heat over water, and her voice filled the amphitheater without ever sounding loud. "Students," she said, "you are safe." What you witnessed was an imbalance in the light current. It has been contained. A murmur swept through the crowd. Contained was a polite word for not understood. Lyria sat between Mira and Ira, heart thrumming. Auren was 2 rows ahead, his posture perfect, eyes fixed forward. When Virelia's gaze moved briefly across the hall, her expression lingered. Not on him, not on her, but somewhere between them. After the assembly, in the hum of uneasy conversation, Auren waited by the doorway. Dewglow. The name in his voice sounded like both greeting and challenge. She joined him, ignoring the sudden hush of gossip around them. "You saw it too." "I did," he said, "and I don't think it was the first time." They walked side by side down the glass corridor that linked the central tower to the gardens. Outside, clouds drifted like slow-moving lanterns. Auren's jaw tightened. Veil heart records mention a phenomenon, the mirror veil. When the moon rune appears in void form, it's not projecting light, but absorbing it, drawing magic inward. My family studied it generations ago. "Your family?" she asked. He hesitated. "We keep archives. Most are sealed. My father says the Valahart line was once tied to the Lightkeepers, guardians of balance between illumination and shadow." He looked at her then, the smallest flicker of vulnerability showing through the usual calm. "That crescent is their mark." Lyria slowed her pace. "So your family knew about this symbol before it ever appeared to me." "Perhaps," he said quietly. "Or perhaps it appeared to you because of me." Neither spoke for a moment, only the faint hum of magic under their feet. The heartbeat of the academy itself filled the silence. Finally, Lyria said, "Then we find out together." Auren nodded once. Together. They began to investigate in stolen hours between classes. Mira insisted on joining. "If you two get expelled for sneaking into restricted archives, someone sensible should at least bring snacks." And Ira followed, more out of principle than curiosity. "If you die, I'd rather have primary source notes," she said dryly. Their first stop was the East Library vaults, a labyrinth of floating ladders and sleeping dust. The entrance was guarded by a portrait that demanded riddles before letting anyone through. Mira answered with a melody instead, and the portrait, charmed by the tune, swung open. Inside, shelves wound upward into mist. The air smelled of silver ink and old thunder. Runes glowed faintly on the floor, forming lines that pulsed toward the back wall where crystal tablets rested beneath glass. Auren traced one with his fingertip. The surface shimmered, and faint writing appeared. Valahart Covenant, year 274. He read softly, "Light cannot exist without its echo." Lyria leaned closer. "Echo." He touched another line. The letters rearranged themselves into a diagram, the crescent surrounded by 12 dots. Her pulse skipped. "It's the same," she whispered. "The symbol." Mira exhaled. "Then what does it do?" Before Auren could answer, the air thickened. The runes beneath their feet brightened, shifting hue from gold to violet. Ira took a step back. "That's not supposed to happen." A low hum rose, vibrating through the floor and into their bones. The glass above the tablet fogged, then cleared, revealing a reflection not of their faces, but of the moonvine garden. And within it, another shadow, moving. Lyria's orb flared in response. The reflection trembled, and a voice, soft as falling ash, threaded through the hum. "The bond awakens. Balance seeks its other half." Then silence. The light dimmed. The rune lines cooled. When they could breathe again, the four of them stared at each other, half afraid to speak first. Mira finally said, "Please tell me that was one of the professors." "It wasn't," Auren said, and his voice had lost its calm entirely. Ira frowned. "Auren, your family's archives, do they mention bonds?" He shook his head. "Only in fragments. A Lightkeeper bond was dangerous. 2 lines intertwined so tightly that if one faltered, the other burned." Lyria met his eyes. "You think that's what's happening to us?" "I think," he said slowly, "the Academy is standing on something older than its foundations." Days passed with the illusion of normalcy. Professors carried on, lessons continued, but whispers ran beneath the routine like hidden streams. Students murmured about shared dreams, of a silver forest, of runes that crawled over their skin before dissolving at dawn. Mira began keeping a dream journal. Ira compiled her findings into tidy columns of what she called symptomatology of enchantment diffusion. Lyria stopped pretending to sleep easily. Some nights she woke to find the orb hovering above her bed, glowing in a steady rhythm. Each pulse made the mark on her wrist, one she hadn't noticed forming until now, tingle with light. One night, she found Auren already waiting in the courtyard, his own wrist bearing the faint outline of the same crescent. "So it's not just me," she said. He turned his hand in the moonlight. "No, it's accelerating." Before either could say more, the ground beneath them gave a subtle tremor. The fountain's water rose in a perfect column, freezing mid-air. In its surface shimmered a figure, not Pelerinly, but regal, crowned in silver leaves. The voice came clear, genderless, ancient. "Lightkeeper heirs. The balance decays. Seek the roots of shadow, or the dawn will drown." Then the column collapsed back into water, splashing their faces with cold clarity. Auren's jaw clenched. "My family kept this hidden. They knew." "Then it's time you stop protecting their secrets," Lyria said gently. He met her gaze, anger, confusion, and something like relief flickering behind his eyes. "And start protecting ours." By the week's end, their quiet investigation had become something else. A cause, a tether. Between classes, they mapped the faint blackouts that rippled across the towers, charted which runes dimmed first. Patterns emerged. Every disturbance formed part of a vast circle centered beneath the oldest building. The Sanctum of Dawnlight, sealed since the Academy's founding. Mira looked at the chart. If the pattern closes, the entire ley system could invert. Invert? Ira repeated. Light collapsing inward, Auren said. Everything the Academy draws from the sun would turn to shadow. Lyria swallowed hard. Then that's where we go next. Auren nodded. Into the sanctum. Outside, night deepened, stars shifting like cautious eyes. From a window high above, Headmistress Virelia watched 4 small figures walking along the bridge toward the Forbidden Tower. Her reflection in the glass shimmered, just for an instant, into the same crescent symbol before fading. She whispered to no one and to everything, "So the bond begins again."